Rock and roll. Three events occurred during the 1940s that forever changed the face of American musical culture and at the same time facilitated the birth of rock and roll. World War II, the invention of the 45 RPM record, and the invention of the solid body electric guitar. Let's deal with these one at a time. World War II mixed the races in the United States as no other single event ever had. African Americans left the rural South in huge number and in doing so brought their musical tastes and buying power to the urban and industrial centers of the country. The invention of the 7-inch 45 RPM record developed by RCA Victor meant that up to 5 minutes per side of fairly high-fidelity music could be placed on a single, inexpensive, extremely light, and therefore extremely portable record. In 1941, the solid-body electric guitar was invented. Like Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz's independent and almost simultaneous discovery of calculus, the invention of the solid-body electric guitar has been credited to both Clarence Leonides, or Leo Fender, 1909 to 1991, and to Lester William Polfus, or Les Paul, 1915 to 2006. It makes no difference who we credit. The instrument changed forever the sound and the impact of popular music across the globe. With the appearance of the 45 RPM record in 1949, many small record labels came into existence in order to cash in on this new technology. And among the best-selling genres of music issued on these new 45 RPM records was an earthy, urban, electric guitar-dominated style of blues called rhythm and blues. Initially, the market base for these rhythm and blues recordings was the post-war urban black population. But increasingly, these rhythm and blues recordings were bought and loved by white teenagers and post-adolescents, a post-war generation of young people whose search for musical modernity and relevance paralleled Babbitt's and Boulez's own. My friends, there was big money to be made from this music, and the big record companies took notice. These companies, Columbia, Decca, RCA, began to systematically contract with black performers for the first time, even as they sought out white performers capable of creating what was called the black sound. The rhythm and blues craze reached its peak in July of 1954 when the Cleveland, Ohio-based disc jockey Alan Freed, 1921 to 1965, signed a $75,000 contract with WINS 1010 on your AM dial in New York City. Freed initially called his nationally syndicated rhythm and blues show the Moondog Show. Unfortunately, he was sued by Louis Hardin, 1916 to 1999, a 6 1/2 foot tall, blind white street musician who dressed like a Viking and went by the name of Moondog. Well, Moondog Hardin won his suit, so in December of 1954, Freed changed the name of his show to the Rock and Roll Show. As the Rolling Stone History of Rock and Roll exults, quote, "Rock and roll, it was perfect." It was a way of distinguishing the new rhythm and blues from just plain blues. At this point of its evolution, it was a lot easier to say what rock and roll was not than what it was. However indefinable it seemed, the groundwork had been laid for a teen-oriented rhythm and blues-based music with country elements. If it met those criteria, the chances were that it was rock and roll, unquote. Still, the best was yet to come, because the hyperbole about, the criticism against, and the popularity of rock and roll went up and off the charts when RCA signed, recorded, packaged, and publicized an obscure, white, 20-year-old rhythm and blues singer from Tupelo, Mississippi, who was then living in Memphis, Tennessee. RCA billed him as Brando with a guitar, as the Sinatra of rock and roll. Elvis Aaron Presley, 1935 to 1977. Presley's almost instant rise to fame in 1956 was powered by two new media technologies: the transistor radio, which was introduced in the United States in November of 1954, and television. Though commercial television first became available in the United States in 1941, it wasn't until the 1950s that a critical mass of TV sets and broadcasts had been achieved. Elvis Presley's first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show on September 9th, 1956, was viewed by an estimated 55 to 60 million people, a number very likely several times larger than all the people who had ever attended a live concert in the previous 300 years. Elvis Presley's impact on the planetary culture, taken as widely as we please, was greater than that of any other individual during the second half of the 20th century. His look, his manner of singing in equal part African American blues, Christian gospel, and Southern country, his sexually provocative way of moving, and the intensity and abandon with which he performed are all now part of the iconography of the 20th century. More than any other single person, it was Elvis, with what was referred to as his grunt and groin stage persona, who lit the fuse that exploded into the sexual revolution in the 1960s. Jerry Rubin, one of the Chicago Seven, wrote in his book, Do It! Scenarios of the Revolution of 1970, quote, Elvis Presley ripped off Ike Eisenhower by turning our uptight, young, awakened bodies around. Hard animal rock energy beat surged hot through us, the driving rhythm arousing repressed passions, unquote. Rubin's statement addresses a reality that sent shudders through parents everywhere. Presley represented sexual liberation, and no amount of parental or societal pressure could put that genie back in the bottle. His record sales say it all. Between 1956 and 1961, Elvis Presley had 38 gold records, selling 115 million discs worldwide. Elvis made rock and roll an international phenomenon, and he remained the dominant force in rock and roll until the so-called British invasion of 1964, which saw, among many other groups, the arrival in North America of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles.